Emma worked as a reporter for the local newspaper in the small town of Millbrook. She loved her job because it let her help people by telling their stories. Emma had short brown hair and kind green eyes that made people trust her quickly. She lived alone in a small apartment above the newspaper office where she worked. For many months, Emma had been hearing strange whispers round town. People talked in quiet voices about their daughters going missing. At first, it was just one or two families reporting that their young women had disappeared. But then more families came forward with similar stories. Mrs. Peterson from Oak Street said her 18-year-old daughter Anna had vanished one night after work. Mr. and Mrs. Collins reported that their twin daughters, both 19, had left for a job interview and never returned home. The police seemed confused and overwhelmed. They had no leads and no clear pattern to follow. Emma felt something was very wrong in Millbrook. She started keeping a notebook with all the names of missing girls. The list grew longer each week. She noticed that all the missing women were between 18 and 25 years old. They were all single and came from families that did not have much money. One cold winter evening, Emma was working late at her desk when her phone rang. The caller did not give their name, but spoke in a nervous, shaky voice. "If you want to know what happened to those missing girls, go to the old Johnson warehouse on Mill Road tonight at 9 o'clock, the voice said. "Come alone and be careful." The phone went silent. Emma stared at it for a long moment. She knew this could be dangerous, but she also knew she had to go. Those missing girls deserved someone to fight for them. Emma put on her warm winter coat and drove through the dark streets to Mill Road. The Johnson warehouse had been empty for years after the old factory closed down. It was a large, grey building surrounded by bare trees and broken street lights. Emma parked her car and walked slowly toward the building. The front door was slightly open. She pushed it gently and stepped inside. The warehouse was cold and dark. She used her phone's flashlight to see where she was going. The building seemed completely empty at first. Emma called out softly, "Hello, is anyone here?" Then she heard a small sound from the far corner of the warehouse. Emma walked carefully toward the sound, her heart beating fast. In the corner, sitting on an old wooden crate, was a young woman. The girl looked to be about 20 years old. She was very thin and appeared weak from hunger and stress. Most shocking of all, she had lost almost all of her hair, leaving only small patches on her head. Emma could see that the young woman was pregnant, probably about 6 months along. "You all right?" Emma asked gently, approaching slowly so she would not frighten the girl. The young woman looked up with tired but alert brown eyes. Despite everything she had been through, there was still strength in her gaze. "I'm the only one left," she whispered in a voice that was barely audible. "They took all the others away to different places. They were going to take me too. But then this happened." She touched her pregnant belly softly with both hands. Emma felt her heart break as she began to understand what had happened. Someone had been taking the town's young women and selling them to strangers in faraway places. This girl had been left behind because her pregnancy made her less valuable to the criminals. "What's your name?" Emma asked, kneeling down beside the young woman. "Lucy Thompson," she replied. "I used to work at the grocery store on Main Street. Before they took me," Emma remembered seeing Lucy's missing person post around town months ago. Lucy's family had been desperate to find her. "You're safe now," Emma said, taking off her warm coat and wrapping it round Lucy's shoulders. "I'm going to help you. My name is Emma, and I'm a reporter. I've been looking for you and all the other missing girls." Lucy started to cry, but they were tears of relief rather than sadness. For the first time in months, someone was there too. "Help her." Emma helped Lucy stand up slowly. The young woman was unsteady on her feet from being weak and scared for so long. Emma supported her as they walked toward the warehouse exit. As they left the cold, dark building together, Emma made a silent promise to herself and to Lucy. She would not only save Lucy and make sure she got medical care and a safe place to stay. She would also find a way to bring justice for all the missing daughters of Millbrook. Emma looked at Lucy's brave face in the moonlight and knew that this was just the beginning of their story. Together, they would fight to bring the other girls home and make sure something like this never happened in Millbrook again. Emma carefully helped Lucy up the narrow stairs to her small apartment above the newspaper office. Lucy moved slowly, one hand always protecting her pregnant belly. The apartment was simple but warm, with soft yellow walls and comfortable furniture that Emma had collected over the years. "Sit here by the heater," Emma said, guiding Lucy to the cozy armchair near the window. "You must be so cold and hungry." Lucy sank into the chair with relief. She had not sat in a comfortable place for many months. Emma quickly went to her small kitchen and started making hot soup and tea. The smell of chicken soup filled the apartment, and Lucy closed her eyes, remembering better times when her mother used to make soup just like this. Emma brought over a tray with a steaming bowl of soup, warm bread, and a cup of sweet tea. Lucy's hands shook slightly as she lifted the spoon to her mouth. The warm food felt like heaven after eating scraps for so long. "Take your time," Emma said gently, sitting in the chair across from Lucy. "You don't have to talk until you're ready." After Lucy had eaten half the soup and drunk some tea, she looked up at Emma with more strength in her eyes than before. "My name is Lucy Thompson," she said quietly, her voice getting stronger with each word. "I know you probably think I'm just a victim who got lucky, but that's not the whole truth." Emma leaned forward, listening carefully. She had expected to hear a story of helplessness and fear, but something in Lucy's voice suggested there was much more to learn. "I've been planning this for months," Lucy continued, setting down her soup spoon. "When they first took me, I was terrified just like all the other girls, but after a few weeks, I started to pay attention to everything round me." Lucy explained how she had carefully observed the men who had taken her and the other girls. She learned their names, their routines, and how they operated their terrible business. "I made myself look sicker than I really was," Lucy said, touching her bald patches. "I stopped eating some of my food and acted weak and confused. I pulled out some of my own hair to make it look like I was very ill. They started to think I wasn't worth much money." Emma was amazed by Lucy's intelligence and courage. She had expected to find a helpless victim, but Lucy had shown remarkable strength and planning ability even in the worst situation imaginable. "I gathered information about where they took the other girls," Lucy continued, her voice growing more confident. "I have names of the men involved, places where they keep the girls, and even some addresses where they send them. I memorized everything, because I knew someday I would need it." Lucy reached into the pocket of her worn dress and pulled out several small pieces of paper with writing on them. She had hidden these notes for months, waiting for the right moment to use them. "I was waiting for the right time to escape and get help," Lucy said. "But then this happened." She placed both hands protectively over her pregnant belly. Emma waited quietly for Lucy to continue. She could see this was difficult to talk about. Lucy explained that her pregnancy was the result of something terrible that had happened to her while she was being held. But as she spoke about her unborn child, her voice filled with love and hope instead of sadness. "This baby is completely innocent," Lucy said firmly, rubbing her belly in small circles. "What happened to me was wrong, but this child did nothing wrong. and maybe this baby can be part of making things right in the world. Emma felt tears in her eyes as she watched Lucy speak about her child with such protective love. She realized that Lucy was not just a survivor of something terrible. Lucy was a fighter who had used her intelligence and strength to gather the information they needed to help the other missing girls. "We need to use what you've learned to find the others," Emma said. "But we can't do this alone. It's too dangerous and too big for just the two of us." Lucy nodded thoughtfully. "I know we need help, but I also know we can't trust everyone. Some people in this town might be working with the men who took us. We have to be very careful about who we tell and how much we tell them." Emma agreed completely. They spent the next hour looking at Lucy's notes and talking about who in Millbrook might be trustworthy enough to help them. They needed people with influence and connections, but also people who genuinely cared about bringing the missing girls home safely. The night grew later. Emma made a comfortable bed for Lucy on the couch with soft blankets and pillows. Lucy fell asleep quickly, and for the first time in many months, she looked peaceful instead of afraid. Emma sat at her computer and began typing. Her fingers moved quickly across the keyboard as she started writing the story that would change everything in Millbrook. The story of the missing daughters was finally going to be told, and Emma was determined to make sure everyone would listen. Over the next few weeks, Emma and Lucy worked together every day in Emma's small apartment. Lucy was getting stronger with good food and rest, and her baby was growing healthy inside her. But what surprised Emma most was discovering that Lucy had been much busier during her captivity than anyone could have imagined. One morning, Lucy was sitting by the window when she suddenly became very excited. She pointed to a large truck parked outside the bakery across the street. "That's Charlie's truck," Lucy said, her eyes lighting up. "He helped me send messages to the other girls." Emma looked confused. "What do you mean?" Lucy explained that during her months in captivity, she had noticed that certain truck drivers and traveling merchants felt sorry for the captured girls. These kind people secretly helped the girls communicate with each other, even though it was very dangerous for everyone involved. "Charlie drives between different cities delivering bread and food," Lucy said. "He felt terrible when he saw what was happening to us. So he started carrying small messages between the girls in different locations." Emma was amazed. She had thought Lucy was completely isolated, but actually Lucy had been building a secret communication network with other victims. Later that day, Lucy showed Emma a tiny piece of paper that had been hidden in her shoe for weeks. The paper was no bigger than a postage stamp, and the writing on it was very small and hard to read. "Look at this," Lucy said, handing the paper to Emma. "This message came from my friend Rose just before I escaped. She's in a city called Westfield, about 300 miles north of here." Emma studied the paper carefully. The message looked like random numbers and letters, but Lucy explained that it was written in a simple code that she had taught her friends before. "They were all separated. We knew we might be split up, so I made sure everyone learned this code," Lucy said. "It's based on our childhood memories from Millbrook, so only we would understand it." Lucy translated the coded message for Emma. It said that Rose was alive and being held in a house on Maple Street in Westfield. Even more importantly, Rose reported that there were 5 other girls from Millbrook in the same location. Emma immediately called her editor at the newspaper and asked for contact information for reporters in other towns and cities. She explained that she was working on a big story about missing persons and needed to connect with journalists in different areas. Over the next week, Emma contacted newspapers in Westfield, Riverside, Oaktown, and several other places. She carefully shared some of Lucy's information with trusted reporters who agreed to help investigate. Slowly, they began to piece together a map of where the missing daughters of Millbrook had been taken. Some were in nearby cities, but others had been moved as far as 500 miles away. One afternoon, while Emma and Lucy were studying their growing map, there was a knock at the apartment door. Emma opened it to find Mrs. Baker, the elderly woman who owned the popular bakery on Main Street. Mrs. Baker was about 60 years old with grey hair and gentle blue eyes. Everyone in Millbrook knew and loved her because she made the best bread and cookies in town. But today, her eyes were red from crying. "I heard you're trying to find our missing girls," Mrs. Baker said quietly. "I want to help." Emma invited her inside, and Mrs. Baker sat down at the kitchen table with Emma and Lucy. She explained that her own granddaughter, a girl named Helen, had disappeared 6 months ago. Helen was only 19, Mrs. Baker said, wiping tears from her eyes. She was going to start college in the fall. She had her whole life ahead of her. Double quotes, Mrs. Baker said she had been feeling helpless and angry since Helen vanished. When she heard through town gossip that Emma was investigating the missing girls, she decided she had to do something. "These girls are like family to all of us in Millbrook," Mrs. Baker said, her voice getting stronger. "I've watched most of them grow up. I've made birthday cakes for many of them. We won't stop until they're all home safe." Mrs. Baker offered to help in any way she could. She knew everyone in town and could find out information without making people suspicious. She also had connections with delivery drivers and traveling salespeople who came to her bakery. "Regularly, I can get messages to people in other towns through my business contacts," Mrs. Baker said. "Nobody suspects a bakery owner of doing detective work." Lucy, despite being 7 months pregnant now, insisted on being part of all the planning meetings. Her growing belly made it hard for her to move around easily, but her mind was as sharp as ever. "I know their patterns," Lucy explained to Mrs. Baker during one of their planning sessions. "I know what days they usually move people, what routes they take, and how they avoid getting caught by police." Lucy drew detailed maps showing the locations where she had been held and the routes the criminals used to transport girls between different places. Her memory was incredible, and she could recall tiny details that might be important. Emma watched Lucy with growing admiration every day. Here was someone who had suffered terribly but chose to use her painful experience to help others. Instead of hiding from her memories, Lucy was using them as weapons to fight back against the people who had hurt her and her friends. Using all the information they had gathered over the past weeks, Emma, Lucy, Mrs. Baker, and their growing network of helpers decided it was time to contact the police. Emma had written several newspaper articles about the missing girls, and these stories were starting to get attention from people in other towns and cities. Emma called police departments in Millbrook, Westfield, Riverside, and 3 other cities where they believed the missing girls had been taken. At first, many of the police officers did not believe their story. Some thought Emma was just trying to sell newspapers by making up dramatic stories. Young women leave small towns all the time. One police captain told Emma over the phone, "Maybe these girls just wanted new lives somewhere else." But Emma kept calling and sharing Lucy's detailed information. She sent copies of the coded messages and maps that Lucy had drawn. Slowly, some officers began to take them seriously. The breakthrough came when Detective James Wilson from the County Police Department agreed to meet with Emma and Lucy. Detective Wilson was about 40 years old with graying hair and kind eyes. He had been a police officer for 15 years and had seen many difficult cases. "This is much bigger than just Millbrook," Detective Wilson told them during their first meeting at the police station. "We've been getting similar reports from towns across the entire region. Young women disappearing, families with no answers, and no clear leads to follow." Detective Wilson explained that police departments in different cities had been working on separate cases, not realizing they were all connected to the same criminal organization. Emma and Lucy's information was helping to connect all the pieces together. "We need solid evidence to arrest these people and shut down their operation," Detective Wilson said. "Everything you've gathered is helpful, but we need someone to go undercover and get them to confess their crimes while we record it." Lucy immediately volunteered to be the undercover person. "I can do this," she said firmly. Even though her pregnancy was now very obvious at 8 months along. "They already know me, so they might trust me more than a stranger." Emma was worried about the plan being too dangerous for Lucy and her unborn baby. But Lucy insisted she was the best person for the job. "They might think I'm helpless because I'm pregnant," Lucy explained. "That could make them feel safe enough to tell me things they wouldn't tell anyone else." Detective Wilson was also concerned about Lucy's safety, but he agreed that she had the best chance of getting the criminals to reveal information about their operation and the locations of the missing girls. They spent several days planning every detail of the undercover mission. Lucy would wear a tiny recording device hidden in her clothing. She would meet with Robert Hayes, one of the main criminals, at the old Johnson warehouse where Emma had first found her. Lucy would pretend that she wanted to make a deal with Hayes. She would claim that she knew other young women in Millbrook who were interested in leaving town for work opportunities, and she wanted to help Hayes contact them in exchange for money. Emma taught Lucy some basic self-defense moves during their preparation time. Lucy practiced the moves carefully, working round her large pregnant belly. Emma also gave her a small emergency button that would send a signal to Detective Wilson if she needed immediate help. On a rainy Tuesday morning in early spring, they put their dangerous plan into action. Lucy walked slowly to the old warehouse, her heart beating fast but her mind focused on the mission. Emma and Detective Wilson parked their car where they could see the warehouse, but far enough away that Hayes would not notice them. Lucy entered the warehouse and found Robert Hayes waiting for her in the same corner where Emma had discovered her months earlier. Hayes was a tall, thin man with cold eyes and a mean smile. Well, Hayes said when he saw Lucy. "Look who came back. I heard you escaped from U.S." Lucy pretended to be nervous and apologetic. "I'm sorry about that," she said. "But I've been thinking, and I realize I can help you make more money." Hayes became interested when Lucy explained her fake plan to help him find more girls in Millbrook. He started bragging about how successful his operation was and how much money he made selling girls' tea. "Oh, buyers in distant cities. We've got girls working in 6 different states now," Hayes boasted, not realizing that Lucy's hidden recording device was capturing every word. "That friend of yours, Rose, she's making me good money up in Westfield." But suddenly, Hayes became suspicious. He noticed that Lucy seemed too confident and was asking too many specific questions about locations and other girls. "Wait a minute," he said, his voice turning angry. "Something's not right here. You're asking too many questions." Hayes grabbed Lucy's arm roughly and started searching her clothes for recording devices. Just as he was about to hurt Lucy, she remembered the self-defense moves Emma had taught her. Despite her large pregnant belly, Lucy managed to kick Hayes hard in the knee and push him away from her. "Help! Help!" Lucy shouted as loudly as she could. Detective Wilson and other police officers immediately surrounded the warehouse. They arrested Hayes and found the recording device with his full confession about the criminal operation. As the police put handcuffs on Hayes, Lucy felt her baby kick strongly inside her belly, as if the child was celebrating their victory too. 6 months after Robert Hayes was arrested at the old warehouse, Millbrook had become a completely different town. The quiet streets that once held secrets and fear now buzzed with hope and community spirit. Emma's newspaper stories about the missing daughters had spread far beyond their small town, reaching newspapers and television stations across the country. The publicity from Emma's articles helped police departments in many different cities work together to find the missing girls. One by one, they located the young women who had been taken from Millbrook and other towns. 17 girls were found alive and brought home safely, including Lucy's friend Rose from Westfield. Lucy had given birth to a beautiful, healthy baby girl in the town hospital. She decided to name her daughter Hope because the baby represented all the good things that could come from even the most difficult situations. Baby Hope had bright brown eyes that sparkled with curiosity and a strong spirit that reminded everyone of her brave mother. She represents everything good that can come from something terrible, Lucy told Emma one sunny afternoon as they sat in the cheerful nursery of the new building that Lucy had created in the center of town. The building was Lucy's idea of a safe house where young women who had been through trauma could come to heal and rebuild their lives. Lucy used some of the reward money she received for helping catch the criminals to buy and renovate an old house on Elm Street. She painted it bright yellow with white trim and filled it with comfortable furniture, books, and flowers. Mrs. Baker had volunteered to help run the safe house. She cooked healthy meals for the girls who stayed there and taught them practical skills like managing money and finding jobs. Her own granddaughter Helen had been found safe in a city 2 states away, and Mrs. Baker wanted to help other families avoid the pain she had experienced. Emma continued working as a reporter for the local newspaper, but now she focused on writing stories about hope, courage, and human strength. She also used her writing skills to create fundraising materials that helped Lucy raise money to keep the safe house running. The safe house had helped 12 young women in its first 6 months of operation. Some of the girls were from Millbrook, while others came from neighboring towns. They all found comfort in talking to Lucy and the other survivors who understood exactly what they had been through. Lucy's own recovery had been remarkable to watch. Her hair had grown back thick and beautiful, falling in soft waves round her shoulders. She had gained healthy weight and looked strong and confident. But most importantly, she had found her purpose in life. Every girl who walks through our doors knows that she's not alone, Lucy explained to Emma while they watched baby Hope sleep peacefully in her crib. We understand what they've been through because we've been there too. That understanding helps them believe they can heal and build good lives again. Lucy had also become an expert at helping other survivors decode the messages and information they remembered from their time in captivity. Her sharp memory and analytical skills helped police find 3 more criminal groups in other parts of the state. Emma and Lucy had become the closest of friends, bonded together by their shared mission to help other people and prevent similar crimes from happening again. Emma often brought dinner to the safe house and stayed to help Lucy with paperwork or just to talk about their days. On a warm evening in late summer, the town of Millbrook held a special memorial service in the park to honor all the daughters of their community. They remembered those who had been lost and celebrated those who had been found and brought home safely. The entire town came out for the event. Families brought blankets and picnic baskets. Children played on the playground while adults listened to speeches and shared stories. Mrs. Baker had made hundreds of cookies for everyone to share. Lucy was asked to speak to the crowd. She stood on the small wooden stage in the center of the park. holding baby Hope in her arms. Hope was now 6 months old and loved meeting new people. "We are stronger than those who tried to break us," Lucy said in a clear, confident voice that carried across the park. "What happened to us was terrible, but we survived it. And now we will use that strength and experience to make sure this never happens to anyone else." The crowd of several hundred people cheered loudly. Many people were crying happy tears as they listened to Lucy speak about hope and healing. Emma stood in the crowd, wiping away her own tears of joy and pride. She looked round at all the faces of her neighbors and friends, and she thought about how much their community had changed and grown stronger together. When Emma had first received that anonymous phone call about the warehouse, she thought she was going to save one frightened girl. But Lucy had taught her that sometimes the people we think need saving are actually the ones who end up saving everyone else. As the sun set behind the trees and families began packing up their blankets and heading home, Emma knew that Millbrook would never forget the lessons they had learned about courage, community, and the power of people working together to protect each other. The end.